The night she asked me to stay, the rain wouldn't stop falling. It hit the roof like 1,000 restless fingers, and the house felt too big for just one lonely heart. I remember standing in the hallway, soaked from the storm, staring at the woman who had once packed my school lunches and scolded me for muddy shoes. Her voice trembled when she said, "Stay with me tonight." And in that fragile moment, I realized she wasn't asking for something wrong or forbidden. She was asking not to be alone in a house that echoed with memories. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in being there for someone when the world turns its back on them, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder about compassion, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us that sometimes the simplest acts of love can change a life. Her name was Mrs. Carter, but to me she had always been Aunt, in the way childhood friendships blur family lines. My best friend Daniel and I had grown up inseparable. I spent more time at his house than my own. His mother was warmth itself, always laughing in the kitchen, flower on her cheek, music playing from an old radio that sounded like it was broadcasting from another century. That house was once alive with the noise of two boys running through hallways and a father who grilled in the backyard on Sundays. But life has a way of stealing joy quietly at first, and then all at once. Daniel left for college across the country. His father left in a way no one could prepare for, a sudden heart attack that split their lives into before and after. I still remember the day of the funeral. The sky had the same heavy gray it carried the night she asked me to stay. Mrs. Carter looked smaller somehow, swallowed by black fabric and grief. Daniel tried to be strong, but I saw his hands shake when he hugged her goodbye at the airport weeks later. And then it was just her. I visited when I could. At first, she insisted she was fine. She would straighten her shoulders, smile too brightly, and offer me coffee even when her hands trembled pouring it. The house grew quieter every month. The radio stopped playing. The backyard grill gathered dust. The laughter that once spilled through open windows became nothing more than memory clinging to the walls. That evening, I hadn't planned to stay long. I had just finished my late shift at the auto shop and thought I would drop off the groceries Daniel had ordered for her online. The rain started suddenly, drenching me before I reached the porch. When she opened the door, her eyes were red, not from tears exactly, but from the exhaustion of holding them back. Inside, the house felt different. The lights were dim, and the air carried that strange stillness that only exists in homes where time feels frozen. She thanked me for the groceries, but her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I noticed the unopened mail stacked neatly on the table and the photo frames turned face down, as if the memories had become too sharp to look at directly. We talked for a while, about simple things at first. Daniel's classes, my job, the weather, but beneath every word was something heavier. Loneliness has a presence, it sits in the room like an uninvited guest. When the thunder shook the windows, she flinched. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but I saw it. She glanced at the empty hallway, then back at me. That was when she said it. "Stay with me tonight." The words were soft, fragile, as if they might break if spoken too loudly. For a split second, I felt the weight of the world's judgment. I was 22. She was in her late 40s. People love to twist kindness into something ugly. But when I looked at her, I didn't see scandal. I saw a woman who had spent decades taking care of everyone else and suddenly found herself with no one to lean on. I told her she didn't have to be alone anymore. The storm raged outside as we sat in the living room. She didn't ask for anything inappropriate. She didn't cross any lines. She just wanted another human presence in the house. We drank tea and spoke about memories she hadn't dared to revisit. She told me about how she met her husband at a county fair, how he won her a ridiculous stuffed bear she pretended to hate but secretly kept for years. She talked about Daniel's first steps, about how terrified she felt the day he left for kindergarten. As she spoke, I realized something painful. She had always been the strong one, the caretaker, the listener. No one had ever really asked her how she was doing. Around midnight, the power went out. The house fell into darkness, lit only by occasional flashes of lightning. She froze again, and I could hear her breathing quicken. I found candles in the kitchen and lit them one by one. The small flames pushed back the darkness just enough to make the room feel alive again. She admitted then that nights were the hardest. The silence became unbearable. Every creak of the house reminded her of what was missing. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by dreams where her husband was still alive, only to wake up and relive the loss all over again. I listened. That was all she needed. Weeks passed after that night, and something subtle began to change. I started visiting more often, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. We would cook dinner together. I fixed the broken fence in the backyard. She turned the photo frames upright again. One afternoon, I found the old radio plugged back in, crackling with soft music as she hummed along. But change is never simple. Daniel came home unexpectedly one weekend. He wasn't angry, exactly, but he was confused. Protective. He saw me there, helping his mother repaint the living room, and something in his expression tightened. I understood his fear. The world teaches us to suspect motives, to question closeness. We talked outside while his mother prepared lunch. I told him everything, the storm, the loneliness, the nights she couldn't sleep. I told him there was nothing inappropriate, nothing hidden. Just two people refusing to let grief win. His shoulders slowly relaxed as he listened. He confessed that guilt had been eating at him since he left. He felt he had abandoned her. I reminded him that living his life wasn't abandonment. It was growth. And loving his mother didn't mean he had to sacrifice his future. That conversation changed things. Daniel started calling her every evening instead of once a week. He planned more visits home. And most importantly, he saw that his mother wasn't weak for needing company. She was human. As for me, I learned something about courage. It isn't always grand gestures or dramatic rescues. Sometimes it's simply showing up. Sometimes it's sitting in candlelight while someone pours out the ache they've been hiding. There were still hard days. Anniversaries hit like tidal waves. The first birthday without her husband left her locked in her room for hours. I sat outside the door, not forcing it open, just waiting. When she finally stepped out, eyes swollen, she didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. The quiet understanding between us was enough. Over time, she began volunteering at the local community center, helping other widows navigate paperwork and grief. The house filled with visitors again, women who needed advice, who needed someone who understood. The laughter returned slowly, cautiously, but it returned. One evening nearly a year after that storm, she stood in the doorway as I prepared to leave. The sunset painted the sky in soft golds and pinks. She looked stronger, steadier. "You saved me," she said quietly. But I knew the truth. She saved herself. I had only reminded her she wasn't invisible. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a moment to comment and tell me where you're watching from. And just before we reach the end, I have a special request. Comment the words, "No one should be alone," if you believe everyone deserves someone who stays. Life moved forward in ways none of us expected. Daniel graduated. I opened my own small repair shop with money I had saved and with Mrs. Carter's unwavering encouragement. She attended the opening day, standing proudly beside me as if I were her second son. The storm that once felt like the end became a beginning. Years later, when people asked about that night, I never spoke of it with embarrassment or secrecy. I spoke of it with gratitude. Because that was the night I learned that love isn't always romantic or dramatic. Sometimes it's protective. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply the decision to sit beside someone while the rain falls and the power goes out. Mrs. Carter eventually found companionship again, not because she was desperate, but because she rediscovered her strength. A kind man from her volunteer group began visiting often. I saw the light in her eyes return in a different way, not replacing the past, but honoring it while embracing the future. And I realized something else. Kindness has a ripple effect. One night of staying turned into a year of healing. A year of healing turned into a lifetime of resilience. As I look back, I don't remember the whispers or the doubts. I remember candlelight flickering against tear-streaked cheeks. I remember the sound of rain softening as dawn approached. I remember the moment a lonely woman realized she didn't have to carry her grief alone. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone who might be silently struggling, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate compassion. Your engagement helps these messages reach hearts that might need them most. Because sometimes, the most powerful words we can say are simple. You don't have to be alone anymore. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.